I can do this. It's going to be okay. Eating fat. This is another huge thing that I learned about because my wonderful naturopath, Dr. Matt, said, fast during chemo if you can. And I was like, yo, I'm going to be in there for 5 days. There's no way Dr. Xavier is going to let me fast for 5 days. But he said, okay, if you can't fast, then look into the ketogenic diet. So he told me this the day before I started round 2. All that I knew was like eat fat. So I just ate so much fat. I made this weird bread with like cashew sourdough thing and had bacon. I'd call the kitchen and they're like, so what do you want for breakfast? I'm like, can I get 2 servings of bacon? And they're like, okay, what else would you like? I'm like, nothing, just the bacon. Just bring me the bacon. And so that was a huge thing for me. I accidentally made a typo in this because this is 105%, which is I'm that hardcore. I'm going to do 105% diet. So a ketogenic diet is classically 75% of your calories coming from fat, 20% coming from protein, and 5% coming from carbohydrates. So when we're talking about carbohydrates, we're not talking just about things like grains or bread. We're talking about the carbohydrates that are in vegetables. So you have to work real hard to eat fat, but it's delicious and really satisfying, surprisingly. And then when I talk to people about this, because I've done a good amount of kind of cancer coaching with people who are like, my mom was diagnosed and I heard you've done all this research, or I've watched your journey on social media and would love to have my relative talk to her or whatever. I talk to people about all this stuff, the PET scan, sugar connection, ketogenic diet, and they're like, but we need carbs to survive. And before I was in school to be an NTP, I really didn't know how to respond to that. It's kind of like, well, the body use these other fuel sources. And then as we learned about blood sugar regulation, I learned this awesome word, gluconeogenesis, which is our body's way of creating glucose from non-carbohydrate ingredients, materials, whatever. And so glucagon is the hormone that's produced by the pancreas that's like, yo, our blood sugar is really low. And the liver's like, oh, that's cool because I can turn anything into glucose. And so it takes protein, it takes fat, and turns it into glucose so that we get just the right amount that we need. And then there are people who are like, I can't fast, I can't do the ketogenic diet, I need more structure. So the rock star Walter Longo created a fasting mimicking diet that he actually sells. So it shows you exactly what to eat. I think it even sends you the food to eat. Practitioners can purchase it. Patients can purchase it, and it gives you exactly the info and the food that you need to be able to follow this 4-day fasting mimicking diet, which basically puts your body in a fasting state, but you're still able to get the nutrients that you need. So yeah, I wrote here, it's kind of designed to trick the body, like, hey, I'm feeding you, but we're going to pretend that you're fasting, because that's the way that inflammation is going to go down, C-reactive protein goes down, IGF-1 goes down, all kinds of magical stuff happens. General tips for being a cancer-fighting BA. I am a huge proponent of empowering the patient. And Dr. Xavier was so wonderful in that she just let me do whatever I wanted. And she just said, as long as you keep showing up to chemo, I don't really care what you do. And I was like, girlfriend, you don't know who you're talking to. Because I'm about to go crazy doing so much research, doing so many experiments on myself, and just really using myself as a guinea pig, which I'm so thankful to have gotten to do. Because now I have my own control group experience of I ate whatever I wanted and I felt bad for the entire 2 weeks versus, okay, second round I did the ketogenic diet and my side effects were minimized by 50 to 60%. And then after my last round of chemo, I had just read a study about how long it takes specifically my chemo drugs, which is so great that they're like common but not in the way that they were administered to me, about how long it takes them roughly to get out of the body. So the study was showing that it takes about 48 hours to get 90% of chemo out of the body. So I thought, okay, if it takes 48 hours and my cells have been in a fasting state and in protective mode, if I start eating again right when chemo's over, then my healthy cells come out of that protective mode and there's still chemo in my body. So I'm still making them susceptible to the damage. While it would just be that 48 hours of damage, I may as well have been eating the whole time. So I just thought, you know what, I have to fast afterwards. I have to find out what is going to happen if I do that. And now that I know more about it, I recognize I was not in a very healthy way to do that. However, I didn't know that then. So ignorance was bliss at the time. I had to lay down a lot because I was exhausted. However, when I started eating again, my energy level was through the roof. I did not have to be hospitalized. I had this really unpleasant experience of like my whole body feeling like a bruise. Like Mike would rub my arm and I'm like, please don't touch me. Like it hurts to lay in bed, it hurts to be touched. That was probably 10%. When I fasted before and after chemo, I almost had 0 side effects, which is so crazy. So some of these general tips for being a cancer fighting BA. Say so long to sugar. I talk to people about this and they're like, I can't give it up. And I'm like, yes, you can. This is like, the stakes are so high right now. And I just tell patients, like, this is your only life and this is a temporary change that you need to make, but there is never a time in your life that it will be more important than it is right now. Like, do whatever you need to do, whether that's you clean out your cupboards. I literally put a 3x5 card on the mirror in my bathroom that says sugar is not my friend. And it's still there because it's still not my friend. But lowering inflammation, starving cancer cells, there's all of these really great benefits. And the who do I want to feed comes from my experience of when I did not know that Lawrence was with me. I was just feeding Lawrence because I didn't know. I had no idea. And then once I learned that Lawrence loved sugar, those cravings didn't go away because sugar is addictive. We are, as a society, totally addicted to it. So that didn't go away, but the question started to be, who do I want to feed? Do I want to feed Carrie Ann or do I want to feed Lawrence? And when we value our life and our personhood, we want to feed ourselves and we don't want to feed our cancer. Show stress, who's boss? The cancer patient is the boss of stress. We have all of this stress that we have not chosen. And similar to how chemo does not account for every single piece of treatment, the treatment puzzle, we have things in our control in the stress realm. The oxidative stress of chemo, we don't have a ton of control over that, but we do have control over how we deal with it. And this is hugely important for the nervous system and digestion. As someone who had a 10-year parasite, just wreaking havoc for such a long time, digestion is a huge passion of mine, and is so largely responsible for our production of neurotransmitters and our immune system and all kinds of things. And our nervous system impacts digestion and our stress impacts our nervous system. So we talk here about how stress impacts the digestive process. So when we're in a sympathetic state, the fight or flight response, like what are the areas of the body that get the most blood? You can just shout them out.
Muscles.
Yeah, large muscle groups, primarily that, which the blood leaves what areas of the body to go there?
The gut.
The gut. Yeah. So when we're in a state of stress, the body that thinks we may as well be running from a saber-toothed tiger is like, digestion's not important, immune function's not important, sex hormones aren't important, like none of that stuff matters. So we create our own physical reality by where we go in our minds. So for me, I would imagine chemo coming into my body and like a little army. Like it was just clearing out all this nasty stuff that didn't belong. And I think the way that we kind of groom our minds and the way that, I'm not a practitioner yet, but that we as practitioners groom our minds translates onto our patients. And if we are able to say, hey, you have a really important role to play here, like that patient is going to be like, I do, you're right, and really take control of that. Because if we're in the stress state, our body thinks we're running from a saber-toothed tiger. We have a low production of stomach acid, which basically has negative impacts for the entire domino effect of digestion, and increases the likelihood of acid reflux. And then we get put on things like proton pump inhibitors, which totally suppress stomach acid. Our food's not getting properly digested, and therefore the small intestine is like, I cannot do this much work. This is not supposed to be like this difficult. And then produces issues down the road, in addition to increasing likelihood of things like SIBO and an H. pylori overgrowth and candida and parasites, because the stomach is supposed to be able to kill all that stuff with the sterility of stomach acid. So if our nervous system is freaking the heck out and we don't have what we need digestively, that is no bueno. And the digestion process is a parasympathetic process. So that idea of rest and digest. I met with a nutritionist before chemo. I learned a lot about my kind of motivation style, because she didn't tell me why about anything, she only told me what. So she told me before meals and we totally made jokes about this, to be like, I'm relaxed, I'm grateful. And I would say that like mockingly, because I'm like, I'm relaxed, I'm grateful, I am hungry, I'm gonna eat. But then when I started doing my own research in my NTP program, I thought, oh, she was telling me that because I need to turn my nervous system more into a rest and digest state so that I can actually absorb nutrients. So the why is obviously very, very, very important. So that was really helpful. And then when we have appropriate stomach acid, we are able to digest things like fatty acids, which are definitely precursors to like anti-inflammatory prostaglandins and other things that are doing very important things in our bodies. And amino acids are synthesized into neurotransmitters and into muscle mass, which ain't nobody got time for cachexia. Is that how you say that word? Google never told me how to say that word, but that is such a hugely important thing for us, and in my research has shown to be very protective and increase long-term survival rates. Because if you have to stop doing chemo because your muscles are wasting away, that's obviously a big, big problem. The power of movement. I pulled this lovely photo. This is so important. I was reading a study about specifically breast cancer patients and how important movement is in decreasing the likelihood of recurrence. So they found that in this huge study of breast cancer patients, regular exercise within 6 months of finishing treatment decreased their likelihood of recurrence by 40%. So to me, I'm like, that's almost half. That's a huge deal. Like if exercise can decrease your likelihood of recurrence, every time I'm at the gym now, I seriously am like, I am not gonna get cancer again. Like I am getting so swole right now so that I can be really healthy. But what they found was that 90% of women in this study are not exercising 6 months within post-treatment because we're exhausted and our adrenal glands are burned out, which is a totally separate thing, but we're tired and we don't want to do that, and we're like, I'm recovering, I can't, and don't realize how protective that is. And for things like lymphatic activity, detoxing the body of not just regular chemo toxicity, but also environmental toxins. Stress management is huge because the liver is responsible for processing excess stress hormones. And so if we get in that like saber-toothed tiger mentality, but we don't run or we don't fight or we don't do whatever, all of those hormones are floating around. And the liver is like, I'm already doing enough work. Can you please just help the sister out here? I heard this song on the Pandora station, make like Sheryl Crow and soak up the sun. So vitamin D is also so huge for immune boosting function and turning genes against viruses and microbes and helping with calcium and phosphorus absorption, which is going to help patients come out of this with less osteopenia than they had going in, which is really important. And then reducing cholesterol buildup in the arteries, because cholesterol is turned into vitamin D in the presence of sunlight, which I think is so magical. So I'm like looking at the clock, 8:53. Okay, cool. I could just talk about this forever because I think it's obviously so fascinating. But these are just some of like the basic things that I tell patients, and I always say like, this is simple, but it is not easy. Like, I am not going to stand here and pretend that it's easy to not eat for 48 hours while people around you are eating ribs. Like, that's not easy. That's not for the faint of heart. But this is the time when it's so important. I had a call with a woman who was diagnosed with pancreatic and breast cancer, and I think that she had it in her bones as well. And I talked to her one time, told her all this stuff, but in more like layperson terms, and didn't talk to her again. Got a text from her daughter, who I'm friends with, and she said, "Hey, Carrie-Ann, I just wanted to give you an update on my mom. She just got her PET scan results today, and they cannot seem to find any pancreatic cancer of any kind. They believe that whatever was there must have been benign. The cancer in the bone is getting smaller, and they also said her breast cancer has actually gotten smaller as well." Mind you, she's not doing chemo. She's only doing hormone therapy. Her blood work is better than ever, and the doctor's words were, "Whatever you're doing along with hormone treatment, just keep doing it because it's obviously working." And she said, "I just want to thank you for giving my mom and our family the best present we could ever ask for. Your knowledge and our practice of the ketogenic diet is like saving her life." She's like, "We are able to dream together again." I, of course, started bawling because that is such a powerful testament to the power of food, the power of stress reduction, and all kinds of things. So this stuff matters so much, and you and I, and especially you, are in such a unique and powerful situation, and you already impact your patients so much. I have been a patient that has been impacted by Dr. Quinnell. The first time I met Dr. Xavier, we didn't even live in San Diego yet, and like, she talked to me for probably an hour. I was like, I can't believe how much time she spent with me. Like, that was so hugely impactful. And to, like you're talking about, having these relationships with patients where we feel like we know you. You know, I was like, "Dr. Chamberlain, can we please be friends? How old are you? I think we're on the same page." But those kinds of things, like, other people aren't having relationships with their doctors like that, and you are in a unique position where people are sitting in the seat before you fighting for their lives and feeling helpless and feeling like there is no hope, and there's apathy, and there's fear, and all of these really scary things going on, and there's more to the pie chart. Like, there is empowerment to be had, and there is knowledge to be learned, and action to be taken on the part of cancer patients, because it's largely up to traditional medicine, but there is such a huge piece of the puzzle that is missing, and that I'm just really excited to get to stand with you as a survivor and as a person who's walked through this and guinea pigged myself on all this stuff, and just so privileged to just get to share this with you. So I would love to open it up if you have any questions. I might be able to answer them. I might not. I'm in school.